Before the Death Star became the prominent weapon that we got accustomed to see, many years before the Battle of Yavin, it was Darth Vader who secretly discovered the inner makings of this battle station. Once Tarkin refused to give him the right answers, he traveled to Geonosis. Above the orbit of that planet, a premature Death Star stood, being built day after day by the Geonosian people who were by now enslaved by the Empire. It quickly became apparent as Vader landed on this planet that this area was not safe for the Empire. In fact, they were now being attacked by saboteurs. Vader got buried in the rubble, and using the Force, he escaped by a thread. At this stage, he was infuriated. He demanded a meeting with Orson Krennic immediately, who at this point was still in the rank of commander. Being natural enemies, Orson Krennic blamed Tarkin for this entire ordeal. Krennic suspected that because Tarkin wanted to take over the project of the Death Star, this obsession would lead him to even go as far as to create a sabotage against Krennic and de facto against the Empire, just so that he could paint Orson Krennic as an incompetent and take over the Death Star project. Vader was not interested in the baseless accusations by Commander Krennic and went on to demand from the commander to tell him how many more sabotages has there been since they started. To Vader's surprise, there were a lot. 8 months ago had been the first accident they experienced, and then month after month, these suspiciously grave accidents were now happening with frequency. Krennic hoped that Vader could find this perpetrator, but in Vader's mind, there was no other alternative. Next, he entered a familiar arena. Years ago, he had fought the droid army exactly in this place as Anakin Skywalker, Jedi Knight. At this point, a new character enters the scene, a female loyalty officer named Udra. They had been commissioned by Darth Vader himself to seek out the treachery within the Imperial ranks and the endangerment of the workforce on Geonosis. Udra admitted that this was harder due to the fact that they couldn't torture both of the suspects, but alas, they were able to find small little details. She went on to explain that Tarkin was a manipulative autocrat and Orson Krennic was a venal, ego-fed narcissist. Both were standing at the top of the mountain made up of deceit and, of course, dead bodies that were created by them so that they can ascend to their current positions. Vader was impressed. He went on to ask the officer, in her estimation, could either of these men be behind the sabotage? She gave a simple answer, no. Impressed, again, Vader demanded that she explain. Udra told Vader that they both hate each other, but in turn, they loved the Empire, or they loved the power that the Empire gives them. They would kill one another to keep that power and exalt the Empire. But in the eyes of Vader, this made them even more dangerous to everything they had built, to the Empire. In any case, Officer Udra did not negate the genius intellect of both of these men. In his bluntness, Vader went on to be a bit more negative, saying that brilliant men can also be betrayers. But as she did previously, Udra had a keen eye for realism, and she stood in the middle. She agreed with Darth Vader. However, these men are playing a card game. They seek to usurp one another, but not to destroy the whole game. They both want control over the Death Star project. Doing harm to it would give the other an excuse to redirect the blame. Their best and only bet was to forge ahead to victory, and then attempt to own that victory. If the project fails, well, Udra knew what Vader would do next. He would execute them both publicly. By this point, Vader was a bit confused, or at the very least, testing Officer Udra. If it wasn't Tarkin and it wasn't Orson Krennic, then who could be behind these sabotages? Officer Udra would now present a third suspect that previously wasn't mentioned. This was Galen Erso, the father of Jyn Erso, who resided on Coruscant. Vader wasted no time in traveling to Galen Erso's office. Udra went on to tell Vader that Galen Erso was a part of a tug-of-war between Tarkin and Krennic. Although Krennic won for now, he earned Erso's freedom and loyalty. Vader was now starting to put the pieces to the puzzle. He asked Udra, was Galen Erso the saboteur? To which Udra responded that she doesn't think so. It's not in his profile, but the thing that bothers her is that Galen Erso was a pacifist. You can imagine that Vader was disgusted by this point. He blatantly told Udra that pacifists are fools. In a family portrait, Vader would go on to learn the code name Stardust and ultimately would discover the multitude of kyber crystals that resided in his office. It suddenly became clear to Darth Vader what the Death Star really was. It wasn't just a mere Star Destroyer or a battle station, but it was a full-blown planet killer, one that would use the power of these kyber crystals to direct its energy. And the last discovery that Vader made was a Geonosian egg, sent by Geonosian sympathizers to Galen Erso in hopes that he could help in their cause. An angry Vader would return to Geonosis, slamming the egg in front of Orson Krennic, who had no idea of what had transpired between the Geonosians and Galen Erso. At this point, understanding that it wasn't Orson Krennic or Governor Tarkin that were behind these sabotages, but in fact it was the Geonosians themselves, a faction of these people who were now rebelling against the Empire. Vader demanded a contingent of Death Troopers immediately, and with all these troopers he entered the concaves of Geonosis and discovered the saboteurs finally. It was the Queen herself, together with a band of her Geonosians, who attacked the Imperials with no success. Vader slaughtered them one by one. Even when Tarkin was intrigued and asked Vader how he had dealt with the Geonosians, Vader gave a familiar answer. The Geonosians, they were animals, and so he slaughtered them like animals. Same as he did with the Tusken Raiders decades ago. If there was one person within the Empire that traitors didn't want to face, that would probably have been Darth Vader without a doubt, and you can clearly see why by these occasions. Talk to me down in the comments and tell me what you guys think about this issue. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you until then.